Greetings everyone. Today I'm going to discuss a sports management game series that is based in the UK, or was based in the UK. After all, this series is no longer being made. And because the game series comes from the UK, I'm going to refer to the sport that is simulated as football or footy and not soccer. Just so we're all on the same page, we all know what I'm talking about. But yes, I'm going to discuss the entirety of Football Manager. Of course, only the old series, because the new series, well, it never was released on the Commodore 64. Football is considered to be one of the many great things that come out of the United Kingdom. It allegedly was mastered by the Germans and is dominated by the Swiss nowadays, though only in a financial capacity. But you don't have to do with Germans and Swiss people, for the most part at least. No, in Football Manager you are managing a British football club on its way from the 4th division to the top, that is the 1st division. Now the screens are pretty barren, pretty dry, pretty text only. But that's due to the fact that the game originally was created in BASIC. In fact, originally it wasn't even created for the Commodore 64. No, it originally was released on the Video Genie, which according to my notes here, is a clone of a Tandy TRS-80. And then it got released by Addictive Games, the programmer's own development studio and publisher, for the Sinclair ZX80 and ZX81. And yeah, it was text only. Now, later ports got animated screens, got animated sequences, but not all of the ports did. And yes, like I said, you're trying to get your club from the 4th division up to the 1st. And this is independent of whatever club you choose. Now, I know the game doesn't seem very impressive, but the statistics of each player, even though some people consider those to be inaccurate, the statistics, not the players, these statistics influence the way every football match goes. And you're shown highlights of the game. Now, highlights you can't influence in any capacity, because while you may decide part of the team setup, you're not the trainer, or at least so I think. I admit, noise, yeah, it's pretty much noise, not sound. You get white noise to represent the stadium atmosphere, and some kicking noises for when you kick the ball around. That's not too impressive, you may think, but the game has one thing that really catapults it back. It came with a free editor included, where you can set up your own teams and your own players, or at least change the team names and the player names. And that's pretty much a rarity at that time. And it simulates both the divisions and the FA Cup. Now, after the success of Football Manager, there were actually two successors. First off, I'll discuss the second one that came out, which kind of is backwards. But I want to get the World Cup edition out of the way, because then I can ignore everything about football World Cups. World Cup edition heavily employs a graphical user interface, even though it is rather minuscule. Now, the main influence you have is what you say to the team for the game or in interviews. And you get to set up the team's layout on the field. And you can actually switch between a total overview screen and a closer look from a bird's eye perspective. However, it seems sound is the designer of the original game and of all of the games that came before this in the Football Manager series. The designer, Kevin Thomas, even he thought that was rushed in order to coincide with the World Cup in 1990. And with that, let's head back to the seasons in the British divisions. We're talking Football Manager 2, which now is controlled via the joystick. Some graphics are there as well, and the gameplay allows you to go even deeper in setting up the matches. You get to pick the formation and place the players in their positions. And your formation should be based on your opponent's formation, but the game, like its predecessor, doesn't hold your hand in that regard, so it's a good idea to peek over to Wikipedia to find out what is an effective method to counter the opponent's team. Oh, and in addition to the FA Cup and the 4 divisions, you get to play the League Cup as well. The game still is rather minimalist in its appearance, and the expansion pack isn't included anymore, the editor. Though the editor is much more expensive, you get to alter pretty much the entire game besides the graphics and the topic. You can change the way the play goes, basically the rule sets, the players' names, the team names of course, how scoring works even, I think. The manual's a bit vague on that point, or at least I haven't figured it out. Sound, however, is still minimal. It's just white noise. We don't even hear one vuvuzela, though looking back on it, it wasn't even a thing back in the 80s, in 88, and not even in 90 when the World Cup edition was released, so yeah. Every good thing comes to an end, so will this episode, of course, with the last big bit, the coup de grace, or if you ignore the World Cup edition, the hat-trick. Football Manager 3. Now, this game was solely developed by Bedrock software programmer Brian Rogers, after Mr. Toms had left due to artistic differences between him and the Prism Leisure Corporation. The company had bought Addictive Games in 1987. This game had a lot of difficulties getting started. A release for Sinclair computers was suspected somewhere around late 1991, early 1992 due to a demo on a cover disc for a Sinclair magazine. But it took the programmer until the end of 1992 to get the game done. Plus, the previously made statement that it would be released on all the platforms that Football Manager 2 was released on, those statements weren't honored. Those promises were ignored. Now, the game contains a full 92 team league system, including the Charity Shield tournament, the Premier League, and on the Commodore 64, the teams are in their 1992-1993 positions at the beginning of the first season. At least as far as I understand the articles. I don't know these things. I'm not a football fan. The game is also boasting a graphical interface that it looks like it was hastily converted from a mouse setup to a joystick setup. Players, even though they are rendered with images, they are now randomly generated. Editing is impossible, but hey, at least now you get to hear some music in the intro. Yeah, it's not as good as people would have hoped, and since then, games like Championship Manager and Premier Manager were available for the then more appealing, even to the consumer appealing, 16-bit systems. This is where this game series ended. Not with a bang, but with a whimper, a lowered head, while heading back into the locker room, knowing that there would be no contract renegotiations, that its days of glory were over. And yeah, that's it for today, except for the bit after the outro where I tell you what I'll talk about next. Next time I'll say on the same topic, football, though I'll probably call it soccer, because the game itself is international soccer.